Well, welcome to another episode of the Billy Ho Show. Coming up, we've got some fishing. We've got a young boy catching his first kingy. Then we're going four-wheel driving, and we'll show you how to heat the pies up so they're nice and hot when you get to where you're going. Then after that, we've got the old bug house. You might remember the bug house, the picture theatre, the matinees at 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon, so we'll have a look at that as well. And then finally, we've got the Gooserooter from Geraldine. So let's get started.
Jesus Christ, that was quick.
It's heavy, Luke. Keep it tight. Wind.
This footage was sent in by Hamish Beasley, and he writes, "This footage is from a few weeks ago. Me and my three kids were targeting kingfish in our local spot off Whangaparaoa Peninsula. Luke, my youngest, age 6, is a superstar when it comes to fishing.
Watch the other rods up. Bring the rods up, other rods up. She's all go. Hold on tight. Ready? Luke, it's going to run. Just follow it. It's a good fish. Oh!
And he's being cheered on by his brother Noah, age 13, his sister Georgie, age 10, and as you can see from the footage, he was up for the challenge.
Bring the rods up, Noah. Bring the rods up.
All up.
Out of the way, please, because the fish is swimming in circles. Good boy, Luke. Hold it tight. 2 hands. That's it. Wind again.
Jesus, that was in like 10.
Jesus. Now, I want you to wind and walk forward, Luke. No.
There'll be more.
You'll be right. 2 hands.
Less than that.
Don't let go of the rod. You right?
Oh, the kingy.
Drop him wide. Hold on. Hold him.
Look, don't go flying out of the boat.
This might be a PV, this one.
Get a wine.
So just take your time, mate.
Fine, like ages ago. That snapper.
Walk forward.
Get a wine. You're right, he's just there, I see him.
Noah's just going to hold the tip of the rod for you a bit there, yeah? Okay, now lift up hard. Hard, Noah. Okay, drop him wine. That's it. Do you film, darling? You film the fish when it comes up. Walk back, Luke.
And didn't give up, showing great determination, landing a 12 kg monster for a little guy and battling this fish for 12 minutes.
Now that is a PB! You get it close up on that circle hook, Georgie. Look at that circle hook. Yeah. I'll put it, sorry, look, no barb on it.
I absolutely love getting the kids out fishing. I have a personal page on Facebook. If you'd like to check out more of our adventures, check it out. Hooked Up, 100% New Zealand fishing. Cheers, Bill. Hamish. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? After the break, we'll go four-wheel driving. What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. Father's Day is coming up, Christmas is coming up. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text or email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks.
Welcome to another Macau 4x4 trek brought to you in association with Bars Bugs, the original windscreen cleaner. Straight shipping, the way across Cook Strait. Nankang tyres for when the going gets really tough. This is the final in the 206 series, and we'll look back at some of the outstanding trips over the last 6 years. the Godley Valley, not far from Mount Cook, and the most wonderful four-wheel drive wilderness you'll ever find. Well, welcome to Macau 4x4 Treks. This week we're up the Godley, which is up there. We went there a couple of years ago, and Steve, it was pretty dramatic then. We got stuck in the river and all sorts of things, but I think we might be lucky this year. It hasn't rained for a couple of weeks, so I don't think there's so much water.
No, Bill, it's getting pretty dry. They've got drought conditions further down south, so but the Macaulay's always a challenge. It's a mighty big river and 7 channels to get through. So we'll go down there in a minute and suss it all out. But you're right, the levels look a bit low, so unfortunately you won't be swimming this year, I don't think.
No, which is always saves a bit of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure it does.
Now, what's the most exciting thing we can expect up here today? We've got the shales, we've got the big rock boulder slips, and on the list goes. We're going to try and get up to the glacier up the top there today.
Yeah, the stream fans are the most difficult part because they come off the side of the mountains, and we've got to try and get around them or over them. Getting across them is a lot of work. It's just finding a way that you can work your way through the big boulders.
Sure. Well, folks, looking forward to a great trek up the Godley, so sit back and relax and enjoy some more Macau 4x4 treks.
And there's one pile, all nicely done, ready to go in. We'll wait and see what the response is at the other end to see whether there's cries of delight or laughs of derision. It's all an experiment. 2 pies.
What herbs and spices are you adding today?
Herbs and spices, salt and pepper only. Tomato sauce, if you want it. And with the safari, the good thing is it's got the place for it ready made. So we pack them in here, like this. No, I don't know. Where's the fat one first? Because I think the fat one. Now, with any luck, they'll still be there when we get there.
And cooked.
Bingo! Here we go.
The year is 2003, and this was the first time that Paul started with his pies under the bonnet. Paul and Eileen have been coming on the treks now ever since. We have to cross 7 channels that make up the Macaulay River, which, like the Godley, runs into Lake Tekapo. Not far into the journey up the Godley, I think is the loneliest signpost in the whole country. Public road, it says. I think what's missing is the little no exit addition to the bottom. With the river flooding several times a year, the track gets washed away a bit, and Steve as leader needs to be able to pick his way along it. A fair bit of the time, we all have to make our own track. You can see the vastness of the Godley Valley with the trucks looking like ants trying to cross a great big room. However, the scenery as we travel up is spectacular to say the least. Being hemmed in by huge mountains all around us certainly makes you feel insignificant. Everybody enjoys the water, and there's certainly plenty of little water crossings all the way up the Godley Valley. Scenery like this waterfall, absolutely spectacular, and this particular waterfall is what inspired Paul and Eileen into coming on the treks in the first place. Well, we reached the halfway point, and I have a word with 1 or 2 of the trekkers.
Is that a rugged trip up there?
So far it's been pretty placid. It has been a bit bumpy on some parts because of the stream washing away the 4x4.
To make it. Did you enjoy the hill?
No, I hated it.
I'm in this hill. Didn't we go over a hill just back there, bumpy one?
Oh, just down the slopes.
It's nothing.
Yeah,
It's
exciting.
nothing at all.
That was exciting. That was great. I think Paul was a bit nervous.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Paul was very nervous getting down there.
He took a full text, didn't
Yes.
he?
But in the end, he did it, and he did it well.
Excellent. Would you do this again?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Up here it's going to get a lot more rugged, much more bumpy.
How do you know that?
Well, we've been up last year and we saw and did a bit of a trek up here and did a bit of a walk. We actually got to one of the stream fans just down there and we did a bit of a trek up here and we saw how big the boulders were getting, and in the book it also describes the size of the boulders getting a lot larger and it's a lot heavier as we go on. So we might.
So, the moment has arrived. We're on our way up the Godley, past the furthest point we have ever been in previous treks, into no man's land. Steve picks his way through as the convoy follows across the rocky vastness that is the Godley Valley. We're dwarfed by the surrounding mountains, and just being there, as Tessa said earlier, has a certain magic all its own. If you decide you'd like to come up here, you do need a minimum of 3 big diesel trucks. It's a bit like going out to sea. Someone needs to know where you are and what time you're coming back. Otherwise you could be stuck up here with no help on its way, and I can tell you it's a very, very harsh place indeed. Steve has a bit of a track to follow, and that's just about to run out. It's time to start making his own. You can't help but be overawed by your surroundings up here. Well, one more river to cross before we get to the end of the road. Well, here comes Paul. You remember Paul, he put the pies under his bonnet. Let's see how they got on.
That's that lot. Here's one bit for the driver. Any good?
It's beautiful. Oh, much better than being in the oven.
And it doesn't even have any diesel smell whatsoever.
No.
Absolutely beautiful.
Well, Steve, we've arrived at the top of the Godley, and that glacier's up there, the lake's up there, just like they said in the book.
Yeah, and some. We can see about 5 glaciers from here, but it's just absolutely amazing. Fantastic to get up here.
So there you go. That's what you do to heat up the pies, and they're lovely and hot at the other end. Now let's go and have a look at the bug house. When I was a boy, I went to Avondale, and the Avondale Picture Theatre was called the Grosvenor back then. Later, it became the Hollywood. But most towns around the country had a picture theatre of some sort, with names like the Embassy, the Roxy, the Civic like the one in Queen Street, the Regent, and so on. On the way to the pictures, you bought some Jaffas in a box that looked like that, and the seats all had the little fold-up ones in the front. I always went down the front so I could collect the Jaffas as they rolled down. Most theatres were pretty well laid out, and they all started with God Save the Queen, and we all had to stand up, which we did, and once that was over, we got into the movies. And usually they had the Three Stooges, and the Three Stooges were always a bit funny, and we laughed, but you watch them these days and you wonder what the hell you were laughing at.
What's the matter? Nothing. Get that letter. Which one? That one. Go on over and look for fingerprints. Oh, highly polished mahogany. And termites. With big blue eyes. Get out of here.
At half time, the boys would come in with their ice cream boxes and we'd buy an ice cream from them. Otherwise, we'd go outside and to the dairy and buy a TT2. A TT2 was an ice block of orange, green, lemonade, or perhaps a buzz bar. Well, that's what we did back in the day at the old bug house. And I'm sure that'll bring back a few memories for a lot of you. Well, there you go. That's what it was like back in the day. Now we're going to move on to a truck. And the White Truck Company started way back in the early 1900s and worked their way through. About the 50s, they started getting taken over by people. But one of the classic trucks that the Whites put out was the White 3000, which they put out in 1949. And in 1949, it had the tilt cab, and that was very, very modern. Anyway, my friend Gavin Abbott has actually got one. 3 or 4 came to New Zealand and he's got one, so let's join Gavin and have a look at his White 3000. What we've got here is a White 3000, and you were saying before that only 4 ever came to New Zealand.
Yes, there was.
And this is one of them.
This is one of the 4. The Cable Price were the agents for them, and they sold 2 to Uden Brothers in Pataroo. They were logging contractors. And 1 went to Dick Twistleton in Gisborne on logging, and the 4th one went to T.P. Gilroy in Christchurch as a transporter. I was talking to Jim Uden many, many years ago, and he said that when they bought the first one, in the interim, the black budget came out in 1958 and the sales tax was increased, and Udens were of a second thought whether they would take the second truck because they were so expensive, and the price had gone up with the increase in sales tax. But they needed the truck, so they took it.
So did this come in from America and they were prepared to pay all the extra money in 1958? Of course, you still only buy British.
Yes.
So they must have sort of spent a small fortune to have this particular truck.
They had been running the bonneted models and had a good run from them, so they standardised, because it was the same petrol motor in both models.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're saying this came out in 1949?
Yes.
And it's the first tilt cab in the world?
Yes, it was the first mass-produced tilt cab in the world, and it was quite a sensation because not only was it a tilt cab, but it was so far advanced. It had this aerodynamic shape. It had a big flat one-piece windscreen. No gutterings. There's no gutterings on the cab at all. And the pedals inside the cab were pendulum, which was a first. And the vent in the front there would open out and let the air in, and you could also get into the dashboard. So it had so much of modern thinking in it, but it was very expensive to build, and also it's lined inside with steel as well, and it was very heavy, and those two reasons were the downfall from it. But it set the pattern for tilt cab trucks.
Very big steering wheel, very thin steering wheel, and there's actually a horn in the middle of it.
Yes, there was a horn in the middle with the white badge in the centre, and because no power steering, but it was very low geared.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, depending on a windy road, you'd be really working with this wheel all the way, because it was quite a number of turns from lock to lock.
Okay, we haven't come to power steering yet.
No, the big wheel was for the leverage, but it's a typical American truck. It was very low geared in the steering as well. You had to really wind around. It could have done with a spinner on it. But it's a very comfortable driving position and a very good view with the big flat windscreen.
You can still see that. It must have been almost a nightmare to all these round curved shapes to make factory. Maybe not.
You could understand that's where the cost came in, why the cab was so expensive. The original truck had a gear lever from the floor here, and it also had a 3-speed auxiliary box and had the 2 gear levers. They were on the floor, but it was all done by linkages, and over the years the linkages got worn, and it was a hit and hope gear change. When I put it together, I got an engine and gearbox out of one of Gibson's Motors buses from New Plymouth, and it only had a 4-speed box, so I cheated and put one of the modern remote gear levers up between the seats. Made it far easier.
And instrument panels, just a basic instrument panel?
Pretty standard.
Yeah.
It was it had a rev counter and a speedo and the fuel and petrol and oil and temperature gauge.
Kevin, I guess this is what tilts the cab.
This is the control for the cab, and remembering that this whole truck, the system is still 6-volt system, and it is an electric screw tilt. It's got electric motor, and it operates a screw system, and this is the control for it. You pull the handle out and turn it to the right and undo the safety lock, and then the cab tilts up. And then to let it down, you just pull the lever out and turn it the opposite way, and that lowers the cab down.
So you can just hear a little motor going.
You can just hear the little motor going.
Wow.
And this was all designed back in 1949.
So the wires coming out of here is obviously what activates the engines?
That's it. It's all controlled by that switch there.
And the air cleaner, and is that a bit of oil reservoir or something on the back there? Or
That's the header tank for the radiator.
Yep.
The header tank, and of course the oil dipstick and filler is available through this side panel.
Wow.
This truck was originally had a 145 horsepower super powered motor. The truck had been repowered with a 671 GM, and it had an automatic gearbox and a Leyland Hippo back end. When I got it, I just got the chassis, cab and front axle. This motor came out of one of Gibson's Motors buses, as did the gearbox, and the back end I got from an international of Deersveld from Gisborne. The remote control was a modern one because the original one was all linkages, and that was not very satisfactory at all.
So a linkage goes doink, 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 doink to get to where you have to go.
That's about it. Yeah, with many joints. Yeah.
Wow.
I struggled about 3 weeks trying to make something work, but it was hopeless. So I just put a modern remote one up top.
So is there another one in the country?
To my knowledge, there's no others.
No, the other three have disappeared.
The other three have, yeah, I followed the other three out, and one of them was wrecked on it was in a metal pitted tie happy, and that was cannibalised there. And the Dick Twistleton's one went to Eltham, and it was wrecked on a farm there, and I believe the chassis was used for a bridge on a farm.
Okay.
And they buried the cab in that. And I understand the chassis of Gilroy's may have been made into a crane chassis.
Oh, righto. We were just talking about that last weekend with Charlie Chamberlain about the amount of machinery and trucks and what have you that got buried back in the day. Like the electric trucks, Gordon Malcolm was talking about the electric trucks from the Waihow Dairy Factory.
Waitoa Dairy.
And Waitoa, sorry, and they just buried them.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what happened to most trucks. Even when you look around today, where are all the Bedfords, all the Fords? They all seem to have disappeared, and all those 190 Internationals that were logging, and trucks are slowly disappearing, but the odd one is emerging in a shed somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Like this was deteriorating, lying in the truck farm at Ohenawai.
Wow. Well, it's good to see that this one survived, and congratulations, Gavin, on doing that. What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. So Father's Day is coming up, Christmas is coming up. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text, or email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks. I always thought the old white was a pretty flash truck back in its day. Now it's time for the old Gooserooter from Geraldine.
So I've actually come into the Westland Industrial Heritage Park to have a look at one of the stagecoaches that used to do the Christchurch to West Coast run through the Arthur's Pass. But I got sidetracked because in that shed there I seen a Fordson. Let's go and have a look at this one. It's not quite as modified as mine, but still a Fordson. That's what you call original, not like mine. Mine is far from original, but anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're going to have a look at the Stagecoach.
This is the oldest collection of stuff in the park.
Right.
The last commercial stagecoach that ran over Arthur's Pass.
So what year was that? Did that last run over?
The 4th of August 1923.
That's what, yeah. That's a wee while ago, isn't it?
Because the tunnel opened on the 5th of August 1923,
oh, right.
And they didn't need the stagecoaches to get up over the hill.
Right, so the trains took over from the stagecoach.
Yes.
Ah, right, okay. Yes, it's got suspension in it.
Got the leather through braces underneath.
Yes, yeah.
Right. 5 horses out front.
So you're slightly nicer ride.
Well, yes. This is the suspension that they used on the American stagecoaches.
Right.
That's where you know what this piece is called?
No.
You have 5 horses out there, 2 polers here, kicking up lots of rubble because the roads were gravel, metal, right? Yes, yeah. And to protect the driver and the passengers in the front here from all of the pebbles dashing up to their face.
The history of the dashboard is not so much to hold the instrument panels these days in modern vehicles, it's just got stones with
Originally, and just the name. I mean, this is the box seat.
Yeah.
Okay, because there was always a locked box underneath for valuables and a pistol. What was the pistol for, Robbie?
To get rid of, trying to think of the right name now, stagecoach robbers.
There weren't any. It was one single road from one side to the other, right? There were no...
So what they had pistols for?
In case the horse put its foot,
and a pot.
broke a pot, broke a leg, and they could dispatch mercifully.
Oh, right.
Not a lot of people know that. But you see how the spokes into the hub are staggered? That gave them extra strength going down and around the corners.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So
a lot of people were out of a job overnight, literally. Because when they opened up the tunnel, all the ones that had fire on the stagecoaches were taken over by the trains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened was from 1866 the road went in and it was a 3-day journey over the pass.
Yeah.
And then as the railway from both ends, it was a 2-day journey.
Right, I've gotcha.
And then the railhead was at Springfield.
Yeah.
Okay. And then up at Cass. And then Arthur's Pass. But there was no tunnel. So
right, so
it became an overnight journey.
Right, yeah, I've got, so what was originally, 3 days as the trains got closer and closer to meeting up, the stagecoach journey got less and less.
Yes.
And then, tunnels were opened
and cars came to the coast in the early 1900s, 1903 or so, but they were still unable to get over that bloody pass. If you've driven over Arthur's Pass in the old days,
through the
zigzag, and these underpowered old cars, very heavy, couldn't get up there, so they had teams of horses to tow them up and over.
Yeah, see, it's the thing, a lot of people look at this collection and that sort of thing and think, back in the old days.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the old days weren't actually that long ago, really, were they?
No.
It's just that with the advancement of technology, other technology can be built a lot faster and go faster and faster. So, all this history sort of hasn't been lost over the last 200 or 300 years. It's sort of been lost over the last 50 or 60, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's my lot for the show. Cheers for tuning in. Tune in next time. Cheers, Robbie, over and out. Whee!
The second Wheels at Wanaka event is on this coming Easter in 2021, and that's on Saturday and Sunday, the 3rd and 4th of April. They're planning a bigger and brighter event with more vehicles and machines working as well as on display. Cars, trucks, tractors, traction engines, scrapers, dozers, graders, the lot. If it's got wheels, it'll be represented at this amazing event. They're having an earth moving only day on Good Friday the 2nd of April, and there's a $10 entry for this. So go to the webpage www.wheelsatwanaka.co.nz for more information. We'll be there filming the event, so we look forward to seeing you there. Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you'll join us here on Face TV next week on Monday and Tuesday, and until then, look after yourself and remember, don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly.